Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Michael Train, artist and owner of Train and Vein Tattoos here in Salina, Kansas. And today I'm going to be talking about coil machines versus rotary machines. This is part 2. If you haven't seen the first video, I highly suggest watching that first video before watching this. In that first video, I give a basic rundown of each machine and how they work and their different functions compared to each other. And so today I'm going to go a little more in depth on how these machines work, but I'm also going to give you a good comparison of the machines and which ones I think you should start out with as a beginner and what I use now. So first, we'll go ahead and start off with coil machines. Coil machines, I'll give you a quick basic rundown in case you haven't seen the first video, which again I highly suggest watching first. Coil machines, you have here 2 coils. This just so happens to have a shorter coil stack on it. That is to save weight, more or less. This is a very lightweight machine made by FK irons. On the machine, your needle would attach here to this rubber grommet, and then your needle bar would slide down here, and you would have a tube that you would hold on to. And so here is an old, a really old brass frame that I carved, made by Icon. They had blank frames, so I carved this out and I turned it into a pin, put a grip on it. But basically this is how an old coil machine would look once set up. So just wanted to show you guys that for reference in case you're not familiar with tattoo machines and you just want to learn more about them, or you're just simply interested. So like I was saying, you've got these here coils. These coils are essentially magnets. Once power is plugged in here with your RCA hookup. Some may still use the clip cord. I've converted all my machines to RCA. The needle would, like I said, rest on this armature bar, attached to the armature bar here on this rubber grommet, and the needle would go up and down, and you would have a foot switch that when you press that foot switch, it gives power. So when power comes to this machine, these coils become active and they draw power, and they'll draw this like a magnet, and this will draw down, and that basically this armature bar will pull down towards the magnets here. It will lose contact with this contact point here on this contact bar, and then it will bounce back up and it will receive contact again, and it'll activate the cycle once again, and the process will repeat, and it will go roughly about 130 times per second depending on how the machine is set up and tuned. So there is a basic breakdown of a coil machine. You can see here you've got a spring up here, and that would pull down and just go up and down, and it would bounce off of that spring. So then we have our rotary machines. The rotary machines, this is a direct drive by FK irons. This machine, it has a cam here, and this cam has a rubber grommet attached to it that is offset, and this cam will spin in circles, and that needle will go up and down, up and down, up and down. And this machine, it's got an ability to adjust the tension down inside here on the needle for the needle bar. It was a really nice machine. I used it for a while alongside of the Halo 2 Spectra, which is right here. And one thing I didn't mention in the first video is this Halo here actually has this adjustable give feature for the give. That was a really cool feature that I liked, being a coil machine artist, going from coil machines to rotaries. I liked that give when I was first getting into rotaries. I've kind of changed over the years. I like a machine now that has no give, that hits very hard, and that's kind of what I run now. But back to these rotaries here. And then you've got, like, these are the Neotats that I started off with my rotaries, my first rotary machines. And here you've got a shaft here, and the needle bar would sit on here, your tube would connect down here, and that needle would go up and down, up and down, up and down. Pretty similar to how the Halo works. So there is a quick breakdown of these machines. Last but not least, I like to categorize pens kind of in their own category. Even though they are rotary machines still, they're kind of their own thing. So here we have the Stigma Thorns. The Stigma Thorns, great machines. I used those for at least a year or two before switching to what I'm using now. The Stigma Thorns, just like most pens, you can adjust the needle depth by turning on the grip. So the way these machines work, these use a cartridge system. And the cartridge, I have a couple here. These are made by Kwadron. This is what they look like. And there's a liner. So Kwadron, great brand. I did a review over their products. If you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out if you're interested in learning about tattoo needles a little bit. Got some great information on there. So the way cartridges work, and I'll go ahead and just open up one of these for video purposes. It'll go in the trash. So, pull that out. So here we have, this is what I'm using now. This is the EXO by FK Irons. This is a battery-powered pen-style machine. Came with two 10-hour battery packs. I've been using it for roughly about 2 years now. So the way this works is you have your cartridge and you just pop it in, give it a little turn, and there you have your machine ready to go. And then I can turn this on. The machine is now running. I don't know if you guys can see this needle here. I can change the needle depth by simply turning the grip here. Not sure if you guys can see that very well, but the needle depth is moving up and down as I turn that grip. So there's that machine. And on this machine, you can control the voltage, so I can go in 0.5 increments up or down. I typically run most of the time right around 8 volts on this machine, depending on what I'm doing. Push the button, there we go. So anyways, there is that machine. And then if I want to remove this cartridge, simply pop it out. And there is that. And try to give you a close-up of this cartridge here. So here is the cartridge. and it has a pin here, and this pin gets pushed up and down by another little pin that's inside of this here machine. So now I want to talk about why I've made the switch to what I'm using now, and how I went from using several machines to just one machine. So when I started tattooing, I started like a lot of people before rotary tattoo machines even were really a thing. I started with the coil machines. With coil machines, I used those for my whole apprenticeship, and I mean basically the first 5 years of my experimenting with tattooing was with coil machines. I began to have a little bit of wrist issues, and I simply wanted to try something new, so I decided to try out rotaries. What I found was with rotaries is the consistency was so much better. The needle vibrations, there was none. The quality of my work, I felt, improved dramatically when I made the switch to rotary style machines. So then from there I made the investment into some higher dollar machines. So I believe these Neotats were pretty comparable in price to what an average coil machine was costing, which was around $300 to $400. At the time, I didn't know what kind of rotary machine I wanted. I didn't know much about stroke. I didn't really understand it. And so that's why I want to make these videos to help other artists understand this as well, because it's taken a long time for me to fully comprehend what stroke means and what the differences really are. And so I started off with a 3.5 millimeter stroke from Neotat. That's kind of a mid stroke that you should be able to do fairly just about anything with that. It just might be a little more difficult to get that smooth black and gray, or to pack that color, or do those thick line work. So that's where a 4 millimeter stroke comes in, and this is actually a 4.2. So this is a 4.2 millimeter stroke by Neotat. So I got the 4.2 millimeter stroke, and I found that with the 4.2 I could pack color much more easily. I could pull thicker lines much more easily, and so I decided from there I wanted to be able to do smoother black and gray. So I tried out the 2.5, which I have here. This is the 2.5. They all look the same, just different colors. And I also have a second 3.5 that I had got. But anyways, that was my experimenting with strokes, with getting these machines. So then I moved on to another brand called FK Irons. So this again is the Halo Spectra 2. This machine, it had some features I really liked. There's a little wheel here that your bar would ride against, and there is an adjustable give. Those were all really cool features, so I decided to try that machine out. I loved it, and from there I got the Spectra Direct 2, and I love that machine as well. But I still wasn't fully satisfied, and I definitely had always been interested in trying out the pen style machines since they came out. So I decided not too long later to try out the pen style machines, and I got the Stigma Thorns. One is a 3.5 and the other's, I believe, a 4.2 stroke. And from there, we got my first battery powered machine. I waited for the technology for battery powered machines to kind of advance before I made that switch. I felt this machine had a lot of reputation behind it with this brand, FK Irons, and so when this came out, I decided I pre-ordered this machine. First thing I've ever pre-ordered in my life. And I got that machine, and ever since I got it, it's been all I've used. I love this machine, and I have found that this machine is made very versatile. I have no problem doing my smooth black and gray. I have and doing packing color, pulling lines with it. It does essentially anything I need it to do every single day, and it does it the same way every single time. Now the thing that you have to remember is with rotary machines, you have no give, and so you're relying strictly on your hand motion, your hand speed, and just the way you tattoo to achieve what you're doing. So not only that, but you have needles. You have many different options of needles out there. And if you're using a coil style machine, you would have a very limited palette of needles at your disposal, because to use coil style machines, you're going to have to set up, say for one tattoo, I use this here pen machine. And then I have set up, I have my cartridges. So I have here, this is a 13 mag long taper. This I would use for some soft black and gray. It is 0.30 gauge. So what that means is the thickness of the needle inside of here and this cartridge is thicker and thinner depending on what you have. So there's different options of needle calibers. So for my line work, I use the 0.35, and then I use for black and gray, I use the 0.30. So before we go any further, let's talk about stroke a little bit. I talked about this in the first video. Again, if you haven't seen that, watch that. But I'll go ahead and talk about it a little more as well. So stroke, like I said, you've got somewhere around a 2.5, a 3.5, and a 4.5 or a 4.0. What that means is the higher the stroke, the more that needle is going to go up and down. The lower the stroke, the less that needle goes up and down. So when you're doing soft black and gray, a low stroke like a 2.4 or 2.5 would ideally work really well, because that stroke is going just up and down just a little bit, just enough to get those smooth black and gray shades in. Now if you want to use a higher stroke is going to go up and down, and it's going to have a much stronger hit because of the momentum of it traveling up and down so far. And so it's going to have more of a hit, more momentum, more of a punch. Therefore, a higher stroke is going to help with packing color and pulling those solid fat lines or whatever you're trying to do. But here's the thing. With a machine like this XO, this is a 4.0 stroke, and I can do everything with this machine. And a lot of that, again, relies off of your hand speed, your hand motion. And then not only that, but a huge thing is the needles, the types of needles you use. So if you're using 12 gauge needles, that's going to be more for like packing color or for doing line work. So if you're trying to do that soft black and gray, and especially if you have a 4.0 stroke, you could still achieve that by using what's called a bug pen needle. Bug pen needles, they're just simply, the caliber of the needle is going to be a little bit thinner than the caliber of a regular standard size needle. So what that's going to allow you to do is puncture smaller holes that are going to be finer so that you can get that smooth black and gray. And that's the big difference between those two types of needles. There is a lot of different needles and needle configurations out there. With cartridge systems, what's nice is you can set up one machine like I have so, and then you can set out 4 to 5 different cartridges. I'll grab a few more. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cartridges, and I'll use 4 to 6 cartridges on an average tattoo, and each cartridge is a different size needle. Some are configured like this. This is a lining needle, and then you've got some that are configured like this. This is a 13 mag. The 13 mag would be, this is what I would use for my black and gray. So yeah, I would have all these different variations of needles set out. Typically on most of my work I'll use like a 3-round liner, and if it's gonna be like a colored piece, I'll use a 7 or a 9 mag medium taper. I like to use 7 medium taper or round shaders, medium taper, for fine little details of filling in work. So I will have several different needles set out for one tattoo. Now, here's the thing. If you're trying to achieve that same setup, but with coil machines, you would have to set up 4 different coil machines. And like I said in a previous video, if you've ever set up a coil machine, it is a lot of work. You have to tune them, you have to make sure that they're running correctly, you have to mess with the springs, the contact points, you're constantly fiddling with them and hoping that they're going to work the way you want them to when you go to tattoo. With a rotary style machine, such as this pen style machine, it's going to work the same way every single time. There's no inconsistency. Every time you use it, it's going to push out the same variable depending on what type of needles you're using. So with the coil machines, like I said, that's a lot of work. So to set up 4 separate tattoo machines versus setting up one tattoo machine, I mean, time is money, and I don't want to waste time setting up a coil machine. I'm here to make art, and at the end of the day, as a tattoo artist, we are here to give the client the best possible product that we possibly can. And with a rotary style pen machine like that, I feel I can achieve that because I have every needle configuration at my disposal. If I didn't grab the needles I thought I needed and I think of another one, all I gotta do is stop, take a break, grab another needle, and I'm good to go. So just like a mechanic, he's got a ratchet, he's got sockets, he's got a lot of different sockets. The mechanic has to remove a 3/8 inch nut off of a vehicle, so he grabs a 3/8 socket. Then the mechanic has to grab an 11 millimeter socket because now he's dealing with the metric system on a foreign vehicle. And so he's got all these different sockets at his disposal, and each one of those fits the job, and that is what the needles are about. So if you're using only 2 or 3, and you're using a coil setup, and you've only got 2 or 3 needles set up, or 2 or 3 machines set up, then you're kind of kicking yourself in the butt, because there's a lot of options out there, and every tattoo is a little different. Every area of the body is a little different. And so to me, using a coil machine at this point is definitely not something I'm interested in. Do I still suggest to use coil machines? Absolutely. There's a lot you can learn from a coil machine. A lot about the give and what that even means. You with a coil machine, there is a resistance you get from the spring and the skin, and you kind of learn and understand how the skin reacts to a tattoo needle by using a coil machine, and you can learn a lot from it. And they're just fun to build. Like I said on part 1, these 2 machines I built myself. But ultimately, it's the Rotary that wins for me. Specifically, the pen style Rotary machine, simply because with the older style, you still would need a needle bar and a tube to run, and an ink reservoir. And with the pen style machine, like I said, you can just set up your cartridges and use whatever you need. You don't even have to pull them all in your workstation. You can have them set off to the side. Often I do that. I'll set off cartridges that I think I might need off to the side. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And if you have any kind of questions, don't hesitate to leave those in the comments, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And we will see you guys in the next video.